this scene is heartbreaking in so many at so many levels, and I think it's heartbreaking because it shows the desperation that's driving these people to flee Honduras and other parts of Central America. But it's also, and my heart aches too, because I know in some ways the conservatives, the Trump supporters are also looking at this and they're saying, see, this is why we need to build that wall, because this is what's going to happen at our border if we don't do something about it. All right, you are listening to The Brown Perspective. I'm your host, Eduardo, and I'm here with the one, the only, the one that we all love and miss, Erreo.
So what's going on?
Not much. It's a new year, a new Congress, and a new administration, and a new hope for a better policy around immigration and immigration reform, which is so important.
I think that's the message going around Honduras right now too, because we have a new migrant caravan that's coming up north. And what else if not to come up now that there is a change in administration?
Mm-hmm. That's so true.
Yeah. I do question the timing, right? We can talk about that in a bit, but I want to show you this video because this is at the border with Guatemala. So this right here is the Guatemalan military, and they're trying to hold back the caravan. You see the front line, the vanguard trying to break through. You see all these supporters in the back pushing and pushing. They're holding. Oh, it's going to break. See, pushing.
En la unión está la fuerza.
See.
So look at, they made it.
They make it. But I want you to check out these guys right here. I want you to check these guys out. Especially there's one of them. So, okay, so these guys broke through. Look at this ones right here. Look. Especially this guy right here. You see that? See, he's forming the regrouping to hold the lines again. And so what? Oh, dude, they ended up just segmenting them off. Dude, this is so effective. These guys are pros.
This is something like the Romans used to do back in the day.
Yeah, it looks like they've had practice. Yeah, that guy that's recording is also impressed. I feel so bad for these people that were left behind.
Yeah, because look at like palo para todos, and unfortunately, I think if the other folks would have continued, there would have been more of I think they would have completely overpowered them. But now the ones that are stuck here, look at that poor guy in the middle who's getting beaten, arrested, and obviously it's not going to be a pleasant experience. I mean, this scene is heartbreaking in at so many levels, and I think it's heartbreaking because it shows the desperation that's driving these people to flee Honduras and other parts of Central America. But it's also, and my heart aches too, because I know in some ways the conservatives, the Trump supporters are also looking at this and they're saying, see, this is why we need to build that wall, because this is what's going to happen at our border if we don't do something about it.
Yeah, we're going to get overrun with migrants from other countries coming to the U.S. and wanting free stuff. That's the narrative, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm looking at
now they want to come because Biden is president and he's going to give them citizenship.
Yeah, totally. You're absolutely right. They'll just blame it on the Democrats. See, this is what happens when you have Democrats in power. They give away free stuff and they open the invitation to people to come from any other country. And when I was watching this video also, I think it's important for people to understand that this is not the U.S. military. This is the military in Central America that has a bloody history of putting down or suppressing free speech and democratic social movements. And if these guys get you, you are someone that is fearing for your life because you don't know what the hell is going to happen to you. The due process or respect you, maybe, right? So there's what's happening here, that they're getting beat up. This could happen also in the U.S. But what happens afterwards? In Latin America, it's a huge unknown. You could disappear. You could even disappear from like state police. And so this is what's really scary for these migrants, that these militaries are ruthless, at least just based on what we know about their history. So I'm concerned. I hope that there's enough public attention on this that nothing happens to these some of these, because it's a good amount of them, the ones that broke through.
Hmm.
And as right here, it's right, and you see right here, they've noticed that the rear, that they didn't keep pushing. So
Hmm.
then they notice that they're isolated and they're trying to flee back, Boris.
Yeah. Yeah, let's not forget that a lot of these militaries have been trained in the School of the
School of the
Americas
Americas, exactly. Yeah, in
at
the
Fort
80s.
Benning, Georgia, which is, I guess they call it, the nice name for it is the Western Hemisphere Institute for Security Cooperation.
Yeah.
But in reality, that was the school that was set up to repress and train a lot of the militaries to go back to Latin America and repress their people and do some of the things that you mentioned earlier through
Yeah.
with American support and also in response to keep the communists out.
Right, right. If there was a communist connection between the communist Russia and supposedly Nicaragua, right? That was the one that they wanted to use that justification back in the 80s. So something else just quickly that came to my mind, just because we are right, these are our people. Their experiences to some degree are similar to some of ours. We can connect, we can relate to a lot of this. And apart from the fact that this is being broken up and some of them are being beaten, but somebody left their backpack behind. And
Yeah.
dude, as a little kid when we came to the US, I was 8. And my brother had his backpack with him and he lost it on the bus. And to this day, I still mourn for that backpack because it
Mm.
had a whole bunch of tapes of music. When you're a
Mm.
kid, you hold on to things like that, to just to something as simple as a tape filled with music that you liked. And he lost all of that. I think he had like some other some other things, just things that are meaningless to adults. They're just things that are meaningful to you as a kid. But when you lose something like that, you lose something so valuable. And I hope that somebody, that this is just like maybe some clothes, something that doesn't have too much of a emotional value to someone, because otherwise they've just lost it there. So I'm thinking here somebody, if this would have been in the 90s, the equivalent would have been, oh, someone's tape de los Tigres del Norte with Camelia Tejanas right there, because that's one of the tapes that my brother lost.
Wow. Wow.
I
But
know,
it's
I
funny
know. It,
because
it it pales in comparison to what's going on here, but it brought back that memory of moving to the U.S., leaving everything behind, and taking what little bit of worth you had with you, and then
Mhm.
losing that.
No, yeah, and I think that was the point I was going to make. Like, in some ways, this is not how any of us want to come to the United States. And I think some of us, me included, were blessed and lucky enough to have a grandfather who petitioned for me and my mom, and we were able to wait, 5 years to eventually make it here. But because I know how long that took and how much sacrifice it took for us to get here. I think my heart breaks because I know that within that backpack, yes, maybe there's like some emotional things like tapes and pictures and things like that, but it could also be like important papers that they need
Hmm.
to prove their asylum case, right? Or information from back home or numbers and things like that. So like it could be a whole person's livelihood that it's in the backpack that they were willing to walk um, thousands of miles with in order to get to a better place, to a better dream for them and their family.
So thank you for bringing up that side, that it could be a the backpack of a parent. I immediately thought it was some kid's backpack, because if I'm a parent and I'm going on this journey, those important documents, I think they're taped to me.
That's the other part. Yeah, I think that's the Latin American
Yeah, like that's
part
that
of, like, you need
survival
to
mode.
put them in a way that where
Yeah,
you're not going to be easily separated or
exactly,
stolen
because
from.
they must have anticipated that they were gonna meet some resistance along the way. Remember, these guys, they have to go through Guatemala and then eventually through Mexico. And you have to understand that the police officers in these countries are ruthless. Also, a lot of the times they are the ones that are robbing these people. Not necessarily so much the citizens, although that could happen as well. But you've seen a lot of stories where the citizens are helping them, feed them, and giving them water. But they're exposed to so much, to so much danger, that I would think that those type of documents, I'd have them wrapped around my chest with tape or something.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And it's funny because I want to highlight that in some ways, this is the perception that Latinos have of law enforcement, that police, the military are usually, when they are out and about, they're abusive. They, they abuse their authority. They hit you. They ask for money. So in some ways, this is the type of relationships that Latinos, communities of color, have with the police that they bring with them to the United States. And part of the reason why you've seen um, solidarity with the Black Lives Matters movement, because we know to a large extent what a police force, how repressive a police force can be. In this case, is Latinos against Latinos. If it's in Honduras, if it's in
Hmm.
Colombia, it's Colombians against Colombians. It's just the separation is you have a badge, and that somehow gives you a license to abuse that power and take advantage of you. So I think that's one of the reasons why that that's a sensitive issue for us, and one of the reasons that because if it's not the police, it's the criminals, and you're trying to get to the United States for a better life, and you hope that you can do that through the legal means, through legal channels. So that's why I think it's exciting to hear that the Joe Biden administration and the Joe Biden Kamala Harris administration is already talking about a comprehensive immigration reform plan that's gonna provide a path to citizenship for the dreamers, to those who are on temporary protection status, and hopefully will help adjust the time, adjust the status of over 11 million people. And I think by adjusting their status, hopefully that also means that they will be in a position to send more money to Latin America to their relatives, that they'll have a way to petition for their relatives. So hopefully we will not see these types of scenes uh, in the future. Although I think similar to what's going on with the coronavirus, I think it's going to get worse before it gets any better.
Right. So you have the announcement about potential immigration reform, and then there's also, I saw one about potentially forgiving student loan debt. So I'll tell you right now, that's good, positive, pleasantly surprised that you're actually
There
talking
you
about those
go,
things.
papi. I told you Uncle Joe was going to deliver for
Hold
us.
on, though, man. It's way too early. Wait till these like, I don't want to say, wait till these fucking blue dog Democrats come out of the cave and say, "Oh, wait a minute, actually, we were opposed to this." Dude, hold on, man. The Democrats have a very unique way of getting in in the way of the people. So I'll believe it when it's true, but at least for now,
Yeah.
like I've always said, I'll take what they give us, because we're fighting against really powerful interests that also make a lot of demands of these politicians. So that's good. Step in the
Yeah,
right direction.
and I think you're right. And I think the reality is that, the blue dog Democrats, or for those of you who may not know, those are Democrats that are from more moderate places who may be actually representing uh, places that voted for Trump for president, or they represent a constituency that's more moderate in their views.
Yep.
The reality is that I think, as we all know, I think as you pointed out in a previous conversation, the House is likely going to go to the Republicans. So I think that the Democrats know that they really just have
2 years.
2 years to get things done. And I think that, unless there's some way, because traditionally the president party loses the midterm, in a way, I think is a natural reaction of the country to try to balance things out. So I think in some ways they just know that, we have 2 years. Let's try to get as much done of our priorities that we need to get done before we lose the majority. And then obviously we would work with a Republican House. Who knows where the Senate's going to be? I don't know how many senators. Well, a third of the senators will be up for re-election, but whether or not those are from states that are reliably Democrat or reliably Republican is yet to be. I don't know yet, but I'm sure we'll start getting that information pretty soon. And how many, you know, Republican incumbents and Republican and Democratic incumbents up for reelection. But yeah, I think they know that they have a very short time window to get as many things done. And I think the fact that and the fact that they're proposing comprehensive immigration reform this early is a
Hmm.
good sign and proves. And I think they're trying to, um, you know, acknowledge the support that this administration got from the Latino community.
I hope so, because Biden did also say that fundamentally nothing was going to change, and he was telling that to his group of wealthy donors. And but before, I don't want to get sidetracked with that. You brought up something that I think is uh, related to this migrant case, and I asked in the beginning that I had some questions about why now. I think you may have answered my question, which is that sense of urgency. I'm glad you brought it up. It's only a 2 year window, so whoever's organizing this caravan, I wonder if they were thinking we need to get there from day one. From day one, when this president gets into office, we need to be at the border to demand asylum. But so if that's the strategy, I question whether it's the right strategy, and whether it would not have been maybe more effective to do it like at least 2 months after Biden is in office, just because right now Biden and his administration, they're going to be swamped with all of these other things that they're trying to do. And having migrants at the border, I hope that they don't end up getting stranded there, and just have to wait until the administration gets around to giving them the attention, because they're not going to get the attention on
Yeah,
day one.
yeah, no, I think you're right, and I think in some ways, uh, they could have waited, right? They could have waited until they had an opportunity to get in there and start undoing some of the Trump policies, particularly around asylum, because their sad reality is that these folks are gonna have every right if they make it to the U.S. border under our asylum laws. They have the right to petition for asylum. Um, Unfortunately, they're not going to be covered by any comprehensive immigration reform act, because I think they also realize they need to have some sort of date. So whether it's 2 years from
Yeah,
now,
exactly. Yeah,
or
there's
you had to be in
cutoffs.
the
Yeah.
country 5 years ago. So they're not going to benefit from the new immigration reform, at least not currently. And I think yes, they should have waited and should have given the not the Trump administration, the Biden administration time to get their organized. At the same time, they just can't. I mean, let's not forget that these people, particularly the people in Honduras, were hit by two Category 5 hurricanes. Like their country is devastated. They've been hit by the pandemic. Tourism is down in that area. So like these folks are facing a serious crisis, and they just couldn't afford to wait. And I think that um, they wanted to get on the road as soon as possible to see if they could
Hmm.
to change their circumstances for the better.
Yeah, but the timing, you have to admit, it does coincide right when with Trump, with Biden's inauguration. But perhaps you're right. Perhaps they prefer to be in Mexico, right on the border, and perhaps they're willing to put up with whatever conditions they'll be in there than what they have at home at the moment. But they'll, I think they'll have to end up waiting a lot. And let's also not forget that Trump and the Trump administration and Mexico's administration were able to come together to some agreement that the Mexican government would offer a lot of these migrants asylum. So if you want to have a change in that policy, you also have to wait a bit to see what Biden ends up negotiating with the president of Mexico, because because Mexico does offer a lot of these people asylum. Whether or not they take it, I don't know. My guess is that most of them would want to come to the U.S. Although, if you really are fleeing terrible situation in Honduras, Mexico is probably a lot better. So maybe some people are okay with taking asylum in Mexico.
Yeah, no, you make a good point. It's interesting because I wish I would have remembered in our previous conversation that Andrés López Obrador was against the Twitter silencing of President Trump, and I think the relationship that he and Trump has been very interesting. So it will be interesting to see how his administration will work with the Biden administration. I do think that this is a big issue, right? So like what's happening here, what's happening in Latin America, in some ways is going to take collaboration and leadership from the United States. And I know that Biden, in addition to addressing comprehensive immigration reform, is also looking to provide aid to these countries and to make sure that investments are made in terms of security, education, to create the conditions that will allow people in Central America and other parts of the world to stay there, because I think that's what most of us want to do. We just need the ability to get a job and provide for our families. So I'm hoping that there's a realization that this is going to take a lot of work and investments on our part to make sure that our southern neighbors are doing better, and just how it hasn't hurt us to invest in the militarization and their political oppression, that we're just as invested in helping them make sure that their economy are 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 more prosperous, that there's better education, so that way they can, um, you know, get on a path to hopefully self sustainability. Which I know part of it is definitely the leadership of the United States and contribution and support, but a large part of it is also to the countries and to the leaders of the countries, to
Hmm.
the societies in those countries, to also address the issues that they need to address to get to a better place.
Yeah, and let's also make sure that, in addition to what you said, let's make sure that we also keep an eye on the Mexican government, that they don't violate their human
Hmm.
rights, especially as they cross through Mexico and as they get into the border. And so it's important for the population to keep tabs on this and understand what's going on. So yeah, we'll follow up with the story, and I think we will get a chance to cover it as it progresses.
Exciting um, to see some movement around the immigration reform front. Obviously, this caravan is heartbreaking, but I think that it just shows that it's something that we need to address and that we need to address now.
Yeah, well, if anything, the silver lining from this would be that at least I don't see any of these military men pointing their guns at them.
Hmm.
I know it's not much, but dude, coming from the history of Latin America in the '80s, where that was common, so at least that's not happening here. So anyway, I think we'll leave it at that then. So, want to close us off?
Yes, so thank you for listening to our conversation. If you want to follow us on YouTube or subscribe to our channel, please do. We are also on Twitter and Instagram at Brown Perspective TV. So thank you so much for listening to us. Welcome your thoughts, your comments about either the conversations that we're having or any issues that you think would be interesting to explore in this space called the Brown Perspective.
Nos vemos.
Ciao.